Welcome to Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea. Our topic today is reverberations of Jupiter and Uranus. And my guest is Madam Simon, and I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett. How you doing, Simon?
Hello, Liz. Much better now that the little Mercury shadow episode has passed that we just were in the middle of. Um, for those who are not familiar, people like myself who are born under Mercury retrograde are more likely to have the Mercury retrograde shenanigans kick up during the shadow period before and after the retrograde. And so we just had about a half hour of that before getting to go on live with the show. So,
Well, thank you for sharing that because that will come in useful for some of our listeners. So, we have Madam Simon, and her website is iconalchemy.com. And if you would like to email her, you can email her at madamsimon@iconalchemy.com. And my website is alightpath.com, and you can email me liz@alightpath.com. So the story began when Jupiter and Uranus had a conjunction. They had a big meeting in the sky on April 20th at 21 degrees of Taurus in 49 minutes. So basically at 22 degrees. This happens every 13 to 14 years. It begins a new cycle or a phase for 13 or 14 years. The last Taurus Uranus Jupiter conjunction occurred on May 7th, 1941. The last Uranus Jupiter conjunction was in Aries and Pisces, and it was in Aries in June of 2010 at 0 degrees, and then in Pisces in September of 2010, and it was retrograde at 28 degrees. And then it finished on January 4th, 2011 at 27 degrees of Pisces. The next Uranus Jupiter conjunction will be on September 8th, 2037 at 23 degrees Cancer. Do you have anything to add, Simon?
no, that pretty much covers it.
Okay, so do you want to tell us a little bit about Jupiter, Simon?
Jupiter. Jupiter makes everything he touches bigger. Jupiter governs hope, governs faith, not just religious or spiritual faith, although he does govern those things. But every bit as importantly, our faith that the sun will rise tomorrow, our faith that we're up to the tasks ahead of us, our faith that things will work out all right. Okay. Jupiter is jovial. Okay. He is the big happy planet in the sky.
And he's the king of the gods, rules Sagittarius and Pisces, the 9th and 12th astrological houses, about higher mind and knowledge and wisdom. And the caution would be lack of motivation, lazy, and overindulgent.
Yeah, because Jupiter is fun loving. And sometimes that fun lovingness goes to excess.
It can, yes. Now we move on to Uranus. Would you like to share about Uranus?
Uh, so, both of these are Roman names for these gods. This one is the god of the sky, Uranus in Greek, if I remember correctly, rules. Well, the rulership of Aquarius is kind of a modern day notion. I actually stick with the classical rulership of Aquarius being Saturn, but I do see that there is a connection with Uranus and Aquarius because of the technological element. Both of them are associated with technology and with systems of knowledge. Uranus is the big rebel and is brings sudden, shocking change, brings flashes of insight, light bulb moments, is considered to be the higher octave of Mercury, who governs thought and communication.
Thank you for sharing that. So the awakener, change maker, about freedom and independence, and the caution is rebellious, but rebellious can be a good thing too. So that one kind of goes on, can fit in the middle. Dislikes authority, can be moody, um, disassociation and confusion.
It should be noted that Richard Tarnas actually wrote a essay pertaining to how Uranus is somewhat misnamed in terms of the planet. That actually this planet would be better named Prometheus, the Awakener. Okay,
Oh,
and
yes.
full disclosure, I have Uranus right at my ascendant, so. Uh, Uranus is the planet of dyed-in-the-wool weirdos, but also the planet of astrologers.
Thank you for that. And yes, I agree with the Prometheus part.
Yeah.
And
As
then the sign of Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It's ruled by Venus, which is love, beauty, and wealth. It's the second astrological sign, and it rules the second house. Dependable, reliable, grounded, and the caution is stubborn, materialism, and overindulgence. Would you like to add anything?
um, so Venus, it should be noted, Venus rules art, fashion, fun things. Venus is very much about pleasure. Um, but she's also about value and values. What is your sense of self worth? What are the values that you hold dear and that tie you to other people? Okay. Um, and so Taurus is, to a certain extent, about living the good life. Okay. Taurus wants good food and good drink shared with good people in a lovely and comfortable environment. It's very much about creature comforts, which is why, say when the moon is in Taurus, we're not particularly interested in uncomfortable situations, right? We want to be in a pleasurable space, and we want to indulge ourselves a bit.
Yes, when the moon's in Taurus, that might be a good night to go out and eat or make a special meal.
Or, right, or stay at home and have a gathering of close friends over good food. Yeah.
Good suggestion. So then we hit the first reverberation, the Taurus new moon on May 7th. The sun and moon are at 18 degrees of Taurus, and they are next to or conjunct Uranus and Jupiter. So there's this big activation or this big amount of energy around this coming new moon, which to me looks like a good moon to manifest on. What would you like to add?
Hmm. Well, note that moon is also trine Ceres in Capricorn. So that does add to that kind of manifestation power. Specifically, Capricorn can relate to long-term goals, and Ceres relates to how do we nourish and nurture ourselves. Um, and so having this new moon that is a time for setting intentions, um, trine Ceres could indicate that this is a good time for us to work on our long-term goals, but specifically with regard to the things that nurture and nourish us. So what I'm getting at there is that there are plenty of goals that we can have that are about, oh, I want to achieve big things, or I want to, look more important in the world, or what have you. And Capricorn can be very concerned with that. But because this is about nourishment and nurturing, this needs to be stuff that feeds our long-term goals while at the same time caring for us internally, that it's not just about status.
And I want to add that a trine is 120 degrees apart, and trines are what I call a flowing or helping energy. And also, back to the manifesting of this new moon and writing our goals down and desires, be careful what you ask for because you might get it.
Also, trines are of the nature of Jupiter.
Hmm.
Okay. So they can also be helpful in that bigness and that desire for things to be easy, desire for things to be comfortable. So I find that interesting that, Ceres is in a Saturnine sign, but trining Jupiter, loosely trining Jupiter, but trying this new moon, and in this aspect that's associated with Jupiter. Um, and anytime we have Saturn Jupiter combinations, that can uh, bring, it can help to make our ideals real. Now you add that Uranian quality to it, and then there is inspiration, which I think was a really big factor in that conjunction. The Jupiter Uranus conjunction, certainly you have Jupiter who makes things bigger and Uranus who changes things, but you also have things like insight. You have the Uranian aha moment affecting our overall philosophy, because that's what Jupiter is very much about, is a philosophical outlook. Um, so this is not just a momentary change. This is the kind of change that fuels lifelong change, that fuels big turning points in our path.
Yes, I would say that we're all at a big turning point. And you mentioned the Saturn energy, and it's sextile to that new moon, and that's 60 degrees of separation. And that's also another flowing or helping type of energy for those that are new to astrology.
It's actually the sextile is of the nature of Venus, and Venus rules Taurus. So again, we've got aspects that feed into and reinforce what's already going on. And anytime that I am looking at a chart, that's what I'm looking for. I want to see things that get reinforced, that get repeated. It's all well and good if you see one signature of something, but if you see two or three or four, that's exciting.
Well, and this new moon is in the sign of Taurus. And in this chart for the Seattle area, it's in the seventh house of relationships. And you and I are beginning a new relationship, and you joining me with the Astrology Star Sisters. So I'm happy to have you on board. And it's like already working for us. So,
Thank you, Liz. Yes, I'm
um,
enjoying this very much.
is there anything else you'd like to say about the new moon chart?
Uh, let's see. No, no, not yet.
Okay.
We still have more things to cover. So,
Well, and we can always go back if we need to. So,
right.
as we said before, May 7th is the new moon. The sun, moon, and Jupiter and Uranus conjunct together between 18 and 25 degrees. So that's a pretty good conjunction, is pretty tight. And then on May 8th, the moon will conjunct Uranus exactly 8 hours after that new moon. And then on May 8th, the moon catches up to Jupiter 13 hours after the new moon. So all these activations are occurring, and there's more activations of the Jupiter Uranus conjunction point at 21 degrees. On May 11th, the sun will be at 21 degrees Taurus. On May 16th, Venus will be at 21 degrees Taurus. And on May 29th, Mercury will be at 21 degrees Taurus. And to me, that means it's like reactivating or energizing that specific point. Would you like to add anything?
No, I just I agree. I think we've got um, it's like we keep getting these little pings to remind us of whatever big changes were set in motion by the Jupiter Uranus conjunction.
Yes, a few people have mentioned, well, nothing really big happened on April 20th. And it's like, well, it's being activated and it's a 14-year, up to a 14-year cycle. So sometimes it's not right away that something occurs. Things can be below the surface, so to speak, germinating.
Well, also, if you have anything in your chart that is activated at that 21 degrees, 21, 22, somewhere around there, then you may find that themes of whatever gets activated are going to be showing up in the wake of that conjunction. So I wouldn't actually expect big things to happen on the day of the conjunction. It's the aftermath that I'm interested in.
Well, it's like we plant a seed and it's like we're not picking the fruit the next day. So it takes the germination process, then it has to grow and see the sun and be watered and fertilized, and then the fruit grows and then it has to ripen and then we can pick it. So it's a process, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Okay, so we have Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. On May 13th, the Sun and Uranus have a conjunction at 23 degrees of Taurus. Then on May 15th, Mercury ingresses into the sign of Taurus. On May 18th, Venus and Uranus are conjunct at 23 degrees. Then on May 18th, we have Sun and Jupiter conjunct at 28 degrees of Taurus. Then on May 23rd, Venus and Jupiter conjunct at 29 degrees of Taurus. And on May 31st, Mercury and Uranus conjunct at 24 degrees. So the last 2 weeks of May, there's a lot of activation happening, even though, the new moon is kind of when it starts, but there's a lot of planets and it's like highlighting and touching and activating that. Would you like to add anything?
So that Venus Jupiter conjunction at 29 degrees. That particular day, we've got a full moon in Sagittarius. And then, which is ruled by Jupiter, right? And so the full moon is a time of a culmination of whatever intentions we set at the new moon. Okay. But what is interesting, a student of mine and I were looking at this earlier today, is that Venus Jupiter interaction, Venus and Jupiter, of course, it like all of these planets, they have these cycles, synodic cycles, involving their rotation around each other, or their relationship within the solar system, within the sky. And so Venus and Jupiter's cycle will end up with the two of them opposing each other right before the US election. Now, one of the interesting things pertaining to this Jupiter and Uranus energy, this combination, Jupiter can relate to government, can relate to authority figures. Now, it's supposed to be the benevolent authority figure, but one person's idea of a benevolent is not the same as another person's idea of benevolent. And what are we seeing in the US right now? We are seeing disruption and unrest on college campuses, which are protesting, demanding divestment from companies supporting Israel against Palestine right now. And so one of the things we're seeing, Jupiter can relate to higher learning. Jupiter absolutely governs college campuses, as well as the governmental response, the police response to these protests. And Uranus is rebellion, is protest, is disruption. and is the students' demand for change regarding the situation in Palestine. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. But I do feel like these reverberations are going to correlate, shall we say, with whatever continues to go on in the course of these protests.
Thank you. And for 29 degrees, we have Neptune that's going to be at 29 degrees for 4 months. Pluto will back up to 29 degrees Capricorn in a few months. We have, it looks like Pallas Athena at 29 degrees in this chart that's showing here. This month, we have quite a few planets activating that 29th degree, and it's called the Arcanic degree. And it doesn't act as its usual sign. It's kind of like a peak point to shift into the next energy. So it acts different. So it can be a positive thing, but it can also be a disruptive phase too. It's like you feel like you want to hurry up and finish one thing to move on to the next. So it's just interesting that we have so much at 29 degrees this month.
And keep in mind that also has a reverberation later on in the year, again, right before the US election, when Mars and Pluto will be opposing each other at 29 degrees.
Yeah, so that could be part of the theme for the year, the 29 degrees.
Yeah. Well, again, I feel like that that relates to this sense of things being at a turning point. The anaretic 29th degree is a turning point, right before the planet's going to enter another sign. And if, just among clients and friends and people I've been talking to, there's been a regular repetition of people saying, I feel like something has changed. And they don't know what necessarily, but that is, I'm just hearing it over and over again. I feel like something has changed. So I do feel like we're at some kind of turning point.
I do too, and it feels like things are changing, and there's still more change to come, but I just don't know what it is yet.
Right.
So then Mars begins to ring the bell on July 8th. And then on July 15th, Mars conjuncts Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus. And then on August 14th, Mars and Jupiter conjunct at 16 degrees of Gemini. So it's like the energy of that Jupiter adding in with Mars. It's just like keeps reactivating those points. Would you like to add anything to this?
Well, I do think that's interesting in connection with the Mars Pluto opposition that is coming up in November, because again, it's like there's this this stirring of change that and these things impact us both personally if our charts are plugged into them, but also societally, right? Anytime you've got outer planets involved, like Uranus, okay. That is generational change. Okay. And so here we have Jupiter and Uranus have set something in motion. And then one by one, the inner planets, the personal planets, make connections with this. The sun, the moon make connections with this. And then it's like they go and they take the message from the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction and farm it out elsewhere. And so, so I feel like, when Mars is going to have its big opposition with Pluto, but also, when prior to that, we're going to have a Mars Saturn trine, when these inner planets that are interacting with that Jupiter Uranus point, conjunction point, start interacting with these other planets, it's like they're bringing the message there. So, again,
Thank
don't know
you.
how it'll play out, but
Well, we get to wait and see.
uncertainty, it's the one true constant of the universe, uncertainty and change.
So, of course, the reverberations continue to activate. On June 4th, the moon rings a bell at 21 degrees of Taurus, and it will do so every month. And that's like the moon moves pretty fast, so it's like a gentle ringing of the bell, the moon. And then on July 1st, the moon will be there at 21 degrees of Taurus again. July 8th, Mars. July 15th, the Mars Uranus conjunction at 26 Taurus. July 29th, the moon is there again at 21 Taurus. August 14th, the Mars Jupiter conjunction at 16 Gemini. And then August 25th, the moon is back at 21 degrees of Taurus. So, do you want to say anything more about the reverberations before I say my quote?
So, I feel like every time something either passes over that degree or conjoins Jupiter or Uranus after the conjunction, it's like they're bringing, obviously, they're bringing the topics of that planet to that feeling of change, to that impetus to change. And so, for example, when Mercury conjoins them, our thought and our communication will be influenced by that reverberation of change. When Venus conjoins them, now it's our relationships and our enjoyment of life that is getting colored by that will to change, that desire to change, desire of Venusian topic. Okay. And when Mars conjoins them, then it's time for action on that impetus to change. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out. But we're continuing to be told by the universe, hey, it's time for change. It's time for a really big change. So I would expect to see this summer, both on a societal level, that there will be more calls for change, more people saying, hey, there are things that need to happen to make the planet a better place, to make us safer and happier, to fight climate change and all that other good stuff. But also on a personal level, this is a time, if you've been wanting to make a change, now's the time. Harness that energy, and to me, that's a huge part of what astrology is actually about, is we can make good things happen in our lives if we put ourselves at that time and space where it is easiest and most helpful to do a particular thing. So when we got a big clarion call in the sky saying change, okay, let's do it. Now's the time for it. Now is the time to make the big sweeping changes, whether in our personal lives or as a society, that will help move us forward and bring Jupiter's good fortune to us. Jupiter wants us to be happy. So we need to make some changes so we can be.
I agree 100%. And I would encourage everybody to write down some wishes and desires that you might want to bring into being, because this new moon, it has a lot of energy for manifesting, and it doesn't have to be for 1 month. It could be for 6 months, a year, 3 years, 14 years, because it's like you could really put some things into motion and, on one hand be realistic, but then on another hand, it's like you don't have to know the how, but just what you want to manifest, because maybe somebody else will help you do that. It could be a group of people that want to do the same project, but you haven't met them yet, or maybe you have met them and you just haven't talked about it. So really work with that. And I like to light a candle, but you don't have to. I mean, you can make it as simple as you want and as short as you want, but you could do a vision board, you could make an art piece, journal, just write it down. It can be simple or hard, however you want to do it, or extravagant. You could write a song, I don't care. Just have fun with it.
Well, and one method that I like to recommend is to write things down and then put them under your pillow to dream on at night.
Oh, that's a good one. I
Oh,
like that.
and that new moon, remember, is sextile Saturn, and Saturn likes to make things permanent. So there's the potential for real long-lasting results from the intentions you set at this new moon.
Thank you. So I have my quote: logic will get you from A to Z, imagination will get you everywhere. Albert Einstein. And we have upcoming episodes. Every month we do the full moon, and the next one is a Sagittarius full moon, and Justin Elzy is my guest on that one. The monthly forecast, the astrology forecast for June, will be Justin as my guest. Then on the first Sunday of the month on Talk Cosmos is Archetypal Symbols with the Taurus New Moon. It's May 5th. It's live. I think I have this backwards. I think the show's on the 5th and the actual moon is on the 7th. Yes, I do have it backwards. So the show's on May 5th at 1 p.m. and the new moon's on May 7th. And then I have 3 episodes of the Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea now. Summer solstice, my guest will be Sue Rose Minahan. Venus Star Point will be Marcia Bouchard. And I spelled her name wrong. I apologize, Marcia. Saturn stations retrograde will be Madam Simon again. So I'll look forward to having you back, Simon.
I look forward to being back.
And I hope you all come back for more episodes, because now we have 3 a month. And Madam Simon has a Patreon community if you would like to check that out and see what she's doing. She's an astrologer and an artist. Did you want to add anything?
I actually create custom astrological art for my patrons based upon their solar return charts, and also based on points in their natal charts. And that's some of my art, actually, that we can see on the screen there. I do both traditional and digital art. And I would love to see you on my Patreon, in my community there.
Thank you. And then again, to get hold of Simon, her website is iconalchemy.com. Email is madamsimon@iconalchemy.com. And my website is alightpath.com. And you can email me, liz@alightpath.com. Well, I thank everybody for being here today. We enjoyed having you, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And I think I have another slide to go. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.